So today we're going to be talking about finding your tribe. I actually am wanting to do something a little different. I'm hoping that in the future I'll be able to do this more, where I post a few different types of content over a certain subject or topic. So for instance, today we're talking about finding your tribe. If you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, and I think I put them on YouTube as well, I posted some short form videos talking about this subject, and then I also wrote a blog post that's on the website, kingdomcome7.com, if you'd like to go check that out. And so it's really just so there's different forms of content, because different people just like different forms of content. Some people like to read it, some people like to hear it, some like to watch it, some like a more long form content or form of content like podcasting, and some like a shorter form like the short videos. The blog is kind of a medium form. It's not super long, but it's about a medium length. But the podcast is going to have the most information by far. If you really want the most meat to dig your teeth into when it comes to finding your tribe, the podcast is for sure going to have the most information in it. So when talking about this idea of finding your tribe or finding a community, we see in this country that a lot of people are lost and a lot of people are quite lonely. It's very apparent. People are trying to find community. And as Christians, we see people searching for community in all the wrong places. But they just want a group to be a part of. They want people to walk beside and to live with. And that's a scary thing, to be becoming a part of a group, or like the word we're using today, a tribe, that is not good for you. That's going to corrupt your morals and your character. In the success podcasts that just finished up recently, I talked a lot about how God is our designer. And God designed us to be social, to be in community, and to live alongside and with other people. I want to read a few verses here that help us see that. First is Genesis 2:18. Genesis 2:18 says this, "Then the Lord God said, 'It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him.'" And then Hebrews 10:24 through 25. "And let us consider how to stir one another up to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near." And then in Acts 2, we're not going to read that section, but for those of you who are familiar with it, at the beginning of the church, the people spent a lot of time in community. The people of the church spent a lot of time with each other so that they could build each other up in love and spend time with one another, have people to walk beside. Community was absolutely crucial in the start of the church. Now, in this country, there's this lone wolf mentality that's going around that we grow up hearing about. Just be independent, just be a lone wolf. Do everything by yourself and even for yourself, and look out for number one. But the problem with that, really there are a lot of problems, but just a couple that we'll look at right now. Lone wolves don't live very long. A lone wolf can't take down big game by itself. Also, lone wolves, I don't know how dogs feel about this, if they actually get lonely being by themselves, but I know that people will eventually get lonely. We are not designed to be by ourselves like that and be by ourselves for an extended period of time. So the question is, how do we find our community? How do we find our tribe? And that's what we're going to answer today. And I want to start out with an illustration. I want you to think about three animals: the turtle, the hyena, and the wolf. So let's think about the turtle for a moment. When confrontation or a threat arises to the turtle, what does the turtle do? It goes back into its shell and it hides. It protects itself. And once the threat leaves, well, then it comes out of its shell. But the point is, the turtle goes into its dark, lonely shell to protect itself. None of the other turtles that are around are going to be trying to protect each other. They're all going to protect themselves. When the turtle comes out of its shell, though, it sees another animal, or really a group of animals, off in the distance. And these animals are wolves. And when we hear about wolves, we normally hear the word pack, a pack of wolves. But we could use the word we're using today, a tribe, this tribe of wolves. And the turtle sees these wolves working together, protecting one another, and really these wolves are willing to die for the other members of the pack. A turtle's not willing to sacrifice itself for another turtle. But the turtle longs to be with the wolves. It longs to have this purpose and to be able to work with a team. But last time I checked, there's no turtles running around with wolves. There's a third group, which is the hyenas. The hyenas stand for the scoundrels and scavengers of the world. They poke at turtles, and they poke them on the shell and laugh at them because they curl up into their shell, and they're cowards. And eventually the hyenas leave them alone, but the hyenas would never think about doing that to the pack of wolves because they know that they would be torn apart by the wolves. So once again, this analogy, it helps us see a few things about people. The turtle represents a person who is cowardly, but also who is selfish. Someone who looks out for themselves, but doesn't look out for the good of other people. And they're too scared to step out of their shell to be who they really are. Hyenas are the people that abuse others, that are toxic, that laugh at others, and that make the world a worse place. The wolves are the ones who represent people who are upright, who are just, who work together, and who work towards a mission and common cause. And they do so in such a way that they're willing to sacrifice and even die for the other people in their pack, in their tribe. I wrote something in the blog that I want to read really quickly here. It says, there are a lot of people in this world who would be compared to the turtle, some who are like the hyena, and very few who represent the wolf. Why are wolves so rare, you might ask? Easy. Being a wolf is hard. The wolf is an analogy to represent the upright, brave person who is willing to stand for what is right and true and will protect those around them. How popular is that today? And how do people treat those who stand for what's right and true? One of the hardest parts about being a wolf is that we will have to say and do hard things that help us find enemies. Enemies that hate what is true and right. The reason why so many people are turtles is because it's easy. Being a wolf is a very difficult thing because you are exposed to laughter, people laughing at you. You're exposed to people reviling you, hating you, persecuting you. So it's a difficult life to live, but it is certainly the more rewarding one. Now, with this illustration, this is the calling. People need to come out of their shells. People need to stop being turtles, get out of their lonely, dark shell, and be who they really are. And this next part might sound kind of weird to some of you when I say be who you really are. There are some people who are in a turtle shell, and they are hyenas. They are scavengers. They are this immoral person, but they're just living in a shell. And so when they come out of their shell, they're going to be this hyena figure, a scoundrel and a scavenger. And most likely their tribe is going to be like-minded people. And this is the hope, that these people realize, man, this life blows. And this tribe, this pack of people who are toxic and selfish and arrogant and abuse other people, I hate being a part of this group. So I want to be more like the wolf. I want to be upright, just, and I want to stand for what is right and true. That's the hope. Now, this is another one of the hopes, though, that most people can come out of their shell and just be a wolf. They're living in a shell and they're right, they're moral, they care about what's true, but they're just too scared to stand up for it. And so hopefully a lot of people will skip the hyena stage and they'll just go right into being a part of a tribe and a pack of good people, Christian people. But we've all got to come out of our shells, because our shells are hurting us and it's not allowing us to find good community. Now, something that I said at the end of this in this podcast post is talking about finding enemies. Whenever we are searching for our tribe, it is inevitable. We are going to make enemies. And something that's going to be discouraging to a lot of people, oftentimes when you start standing up and speaking for what's right and true, you find your enemies first. You make enemies first. Later on, you find your tribe. It doesn't always happen that way, but a lot of times that's the case. Now, we would think that when we start speaking the truth, when we start standing for what's right, we would make a bunch of friends and it would be easy to find people. But when we look at the life of Jesus, is that the case? Jesus stood for what was right and true, and he made plenty of enemies. And Jesus tells us that those who proclaim the truth will be hated and persecuted in John 15. Throughout, really, the gospel message, Jesus will say multiple times that those who live a holy life, a Christian life, and speak Christian truth, speak the word of God, they're going to be hated, persecuted, and reviled. People are going to disdain us. But that's part of being a Christian, is making enemies. The world is going to hate us. If we want to find our tribe, we're going to have to go through that uncomfortable stage and process. Now, 3 things we must do to find our tribe are these. First, we have to speak the truth. Second, we have to open our eyes and ears. And third, we have to pray to our almighty, powerful, and good God. It can be hard to find the people that you connect with. It can be hard to find your community, hard to find your tribe. And so we need to go to these things. We have to, like I said, stand up and speak for the truth. We're going to make the enemies, but in time we will also find the people who also stand for and speak up about the same things. We also need to have our eyes open and our ears open. If we live our lives with closed eyes, closed ears, we're not going to hear and see other people who stand for what we stand for. And then finally, the most powerful weapon is prayer. Praying to God that He will lead us to the right people, lead us to our tribe. Elijah is a really good example of a man who was quite lonely. So lonely, in fact, that he asks God to just let him die. In 1 Kings 19, I want to read a little bit of this story because we can learn a lot from this story and it will help us in our journey to find our tribe. So a little bit of context. Elijah has just defeated the prophets of Baal and he's slaughtered a lot of them. And this makes Jezebel, Queen Jezebel, very mad. And so Jezebel says that she's going to kill Elijah. And so Elijah runs away. And in verse 4, we find him here. 1 Kings 19:4. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree. And he asked that he might die, saying, It is enough. Now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers. Man, Just let me die. That's what Elijah is saying. Just kill me now, Lord. Let me pass from this life. Loneliness is a very powerful thing and can be a very deadly thing. We'll read in just a moment, Elijah thinks he is the only one left on the earth that serves God. So he says, just let me die. Jezebel's coming after me. I'm the only one left that serves you. Just let me leave this earth. Look at verse 14. It says, he said, I've been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away. So Elijah says, even I only am left. He thinks he's the last one in this place that serves God. He believes that he will never find his tribe. He will never find a community who is like-minded. He's the last person on the planet that serves God. And that is a very, very dangerous and scary thought process to have when we think we're the only ones left. That type of loneliness, or even being alone in that way, is a very scary and sad place to be. Now, verse 18, the Lord is going to respond to Elijah, and he's going to tell Elijah the truth about the situation. In verse 18 it says, Yet I will leave 7,000 in Israel, all the knees that have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him. So, God says, you are not going to be alone, Elijah. In fact, there's going to be 7,000 others who are serving me, who haven't bowed the knee to Baal. So this story helps us today to realize no matter how lonely we feel, we may feel like the last one. We aren't. There is a remnant. There is a group of people that we can find, but we have to put in the work to find those people. We can't live in a shell and live a lonely life in the dark and expect to find God's people. The last point is that we have to choose the right tribe. Spoke about at the start of this podcast, a lot of people are choosing the wrong tribe. Well, as Christians, we have to choose the right people to surround ourselves with. In 1 Corinthians 15:33, Paul will talk about the type of people we surround ourselves and the impact it has on us. 1 Corinthians 15:33. Says, do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals. Surrounding yourself with bad people, we could use the illustration again of the hyenas, the scoundrels, the scavengers of society, is going to corrupt you. It's going to ruin your morals. I personally like to listen to podcasts, and for a while I had a bunch of podcasts coming up in my feed about finding people who will make you better. I don't know if you've heard this, but it's something that I've heard a lot of people say, that the 5 closest people to you are going to have a great effect on your life. You're going to look a lot like a combination of those 5 people. The people we surround ourselves with, they're going to affect us, and they're going to affect us greatly. So when finding our tribe, we need to take this very seriously, and we need to find the right group of people. Specifically, a godly Christian group of people who stand for what's right. Now, normally I do a support section where I either talk about a small business or a ministry that's going on. And today I want to talk about the website that I have up. It's once again www.kingdomcome7.com. And on it, there's clothing up there. I'm going to be switching out the clothing to where it's all organic cotton, 100% organic cotton. And so there's that you will be able to buy if you care to get Christian clothing. There's also the ability to study, whether that's through a blog And the podcast is also on the website as well. So if you care to look at that, I would really appreciate it. That's all I got for today. Love y'all, and God bless.